Hey, what's up, guys? Little man with the big opinion here. Today's video, let me help us out a little bit. Today's video, I am going to talk about, surviving the winter. Ways to keep yourself comfortable, ways to keep you warm. And I think it's important because right now it's about 60 in our house. And, that's by choice. But there are plenty of instances where people die from the extremes in the elements, whether that's extreme hot or extreme cold. And there are several different ways that you can very easily knock this off of your prepping worry. So the first thing that you need to think about is having some sort of shelter from the elements. That could be having a $25 tent. That could be your house and the roof and the walls around it. Or it could be, you have a tarp that you're going to use as a windbreak. And in the most extreme cases, check out some of those bushcraft channels and the stuff they make. Some sort of wind barrier, something that if something's coming from the sky, water in any form, you can keep yourself dry. Uh, the other thing you need to think about, and like I said, this can be done very cheaply, or it can be done a lot more expensively, and it's one of those prepping things where you really want to hash out several different parts of it. That way you can mix and match different things, and it comes down to layers. So if you're trying to keep yourself warm inside of your home, if we kept all of the windows closed and the outside temperature was 30 degrees, the inside is not going to drop down to 30 degrees. It will get cold, but it's not going to get to the 30 degrees unless it would have to maintain a 30 degrees for weeks, if not months, before the inside temperature is the same temperature as the outside. But like my parents always said growing up, oh, you're cold, we're not going to turn the heater up, go put on a jacket. uh, so the first thing you need to think about is keeping yourself physically warm. And so, like the example I have is my waffle bottoms. Uh, these ones are Advantage Wear and Care, and these are just the military issue. They have a top. You combine that with, that's not just a standalone thing. You wear pants over it. You can still wear your socks and everything, and it's adding another layer that one is helping keep that cold air out, but it's also helping maintain the you know heat coming off of your body. And you don't have to go with that. You could go with a regular pair of long johns. It could be putting on another um, t-shirt or something like that. But that's the idea of layering. So you wear your underwear, you have some sort of insulating layer, and then you got your outer layer. If you go hunting, there's hunting gear that's made to keep you warm. Uh, there's a multitude of different kinds of jackets out there. Like right now, I've got a vest on and a t-shirt. So that's two layers right there. And you can technically say a third layer because I've got a blanket. I mostly have a blanket because the cats like the soft blankets and that's what they'll lay down on when I'm watching TV, or like, here comes one of the cats now. That's another way that you stay warm, is you have pets, and your pets lay with you, and they're going to produce extra body heat. They kind of produce another layer, and you know they sit there and keep you warm. So layering is super important. Something else to think about is having a thin top layer that is like a windbreaker slash some sort of rain jacket. That way, you could be wearing six, you know, fleece type layers, but if they get wet, you're going to get cold. So having that top outermost layer that can, keep the water off of you, it's going to be pretty important. Uh, you know, Other than that, you know, and this is kind of leaning towards you don't have power, but like this blanket, um, I could probably sleep comfortable with this blanket down to 40 degrees. It's a very thick fleece blanket. And so you should have enough items like this for your household, and, have a few extras. Our baby likes to, throw up and dirty that stuff kind of up. So it's a good idea to have multiples. And, if it were to continue to get colder and colder, adding a second one of these, just lowers that temperature threshold that, you can stay comfortable and sleep in the elements. Like here lately, we've been putting a fan in the window. So the other night when it was 42 degrees, it was basically 42 degrees in our bedroom. Uh, and then, you've got sleeping bags and wool blankets, and you'd be surprised at even the amount of heat that a sheet can retain. Like, I've gone to sleep at night with this kind of blanket that kind of stops mid chest, and throw a sheet over my head, and it retains enough of the body heat coming off of my breath that from here up stays comfortable. And, I don't really deal with the moisture problem of breathing because the sheet's thin enough to, let the moisture keep going. But, having multiple layers like that, a lot of people are probably fairly decently prepared in that situation. And if you're not, buying a couple of extra blankets might do the trick. The answer that I would give most people is look at the coldest your area can possibly get and have a sleeping bag for that temperature. So for us, we can get down into the single digits and the teens. So I've got 2 sleeping bags that are rated for 0 degrees. If it's rated for 0 degrees and it's 5 degrees outside, you might put a blanket inside or throw a couple of other layers on top, because that's when you're messing around with, you're going to survive and you're going to be fine versus wanting to be comfortable. So, you might need to add a little bit to it. But I know at a bare minimum, it gets down to 0 degrees. We've got the equipment that if there's no power, nothing else going on, we can survive that situation. And then that gets into the other things. Depending on where you live, it might be a good idea to have some sort of generator. That way, like, we had bad storms come through, it knocked power out for 3 or 4 days in the middle of summer. We have a generator that we can hook up to a AC unit, and that can tide us over until stuff goes back online. And that's exactly what it did. It sucked for the in-laws and the wife who were at the house, because the only other option is, going to stay somewhere else that has the electricity, because it being high 90s or triple digit weather in Texas, it doesn't matter if you open all your windows, wide open. It's going to get very uncomfortable very quickly, and that's not something that you really want to deal with. You gonna lay down on the blanket? So, having backup ways to restore your central air and heating. Going out and getting, the solar and the wind, that can help out. Just know that there are limitations to that, and it could cost a pretty penny making that work. But, you know, being able to take care of yourself kind of costs money. I've got a DeWalt battery powered fan, and the batteries that I have for it, it can essentially run most of the night, which is when it's really going to be needed to help you fall asleep, for about 7 days. And essentially, each new battery that is bought, uh, as long as they're the 5 amp battery, it's basically going to add one more day of having that run. And it double dips because you can run, the power tools and stuff, but having battery powered fans or those little battery banks that you can plug a small fan into can definitely go a long way. But we're talking about winter, not really the summer. Getting off on a little tangent. Other things that are important, it's not producing, like, this isn't made to be producing heat, but it is. But I've got this candle going. It's one of the Walmart ones that's warm leather and amber, so I like its smell. But, in a pinch, if it's freezing, me hovering my hands here, I'm getting a nice little bit of heat. And almost every prepping thing I've seen, at some point they talk about making those little heaters where you take a ceramic planting pot and put it over your candle, and it kind of helps capture that heat and radiate it out. And there was I think his channel is called Mav. He did a lot of truck camping, and he camped out in freezing temperatures and just used those little tiny candles that you can get 100 for a few dollars. And he tested it, just the candle itself on like a metal tray, and then he did some of the ceramic pots, and it definitely kicked up its heat producing potential. So now you start to get in the realm of like ways to heat stuff portably. Having the Mr. Buddy heater, it runs off the little 1 gallon propane bottles. Maybe you still have gas running, so you're gonna turn your stove on and open it up. If you've got a fireplace, that's a really big win, because you've got all of this time when you don't really need the firewood, so you can slowly accumulate it. And like for our house, we could shut off our den, where we're just warming the den and the kitchen, but that's warming like 18-19% of the house instead of trying to do the whole thing. And we could hunker down in there. Like during the snowpocalypse, we had a townhome that had a fireplace, and that thing was running basically the entire time, and it kept us above the survival temperature, and it actually kept us in like a comfortable temperature. We had friends come over, they'd bring whatever wood that they could find, and we all kind of hung out in the living room. And it still serves a second purpose, because the firewood isn't just going to keep you warm, you can also use it as a fuel source for cooking. So again, there you're double dipping. The thing you run into that is other people can see that you're doing okay, and you might run into problems where you've taken the time to prepare. You're letting off some sort of signal that, you know, other people can be in a bad situation and you're not. And now you've got to deal with, you know, people, how many people are you going to help? Who are you going to send away? Are you dealing with a mob? And, you know, you run into more issues with that. But I highly recommend, if you have a way to burn firewood for warmth, then you should roughly know, how long out of the year, if I had no power, would I need to run a fireplace or a wood burning stove to keep myself or my family warm. That's something to think about. And then, the other side of this is, a lot of this deals with the, bugging in aspect, where you're just kind of sitting around waiting for things to go back online. But it's also important to think about, I go 20 miles away for work. I put a light jacket on just to keep myself tided over to go from my house to my vehicle, and then from my vehicle into work. Are you keeping the equipment necessary to get home if you couldn't just hop in your vehicle and get home? So, if it's 30 degrees outside, I'm not just going to wear this to work. I'm going to go ahead and, have a jacket that I can put on, and, the layers necessary, that if I had to walk home, I would survive the walk home. And I've also thought it through to also be comfortable on the walk home. So that's something to think about. If you're gonna, I know me growing up, I always wore shorts even when it was cold, because that was just the thing that a lot of guys did. And if I had to really walk home when it's, cold and raining, that mile and a half walk home would have been completely miserable. And if I had to be out for an even longer extended period of time, there's the possibility of getting hurt there. So keep the stuff in your vehicle, you know, even if you like start to get on the way home and there's a giant traffic jam. Having the fuel in your vehicle that you could sit there and run your heater is great. Maybe you don't want to run your heater, or you've got less than a quarter of a tank and you want to make sure you can get home. So now you're cutting your vehicle off, and you're using the layers that you have to help keep you warm. All of this, I think, on the lightest end of just having the jackets and the blankets, is the cheapest way to keep this idea covered. And then on the furthest end is having backup generators and solar and wind and stuff like that to be able to run the system that you have in place. And the middle ground could be, like this office is like a 16 by 12 room. I plan on having a little wood burning stove in here. That's kind of a in between, where you're not worried about warming up your entire house. You can worry about warming up a small area, and that small area just has to keep you and your family comfortable, and the rest of the house can get freezing cold. That's kind of a middle ground solution. I remember one of the nights of the snowpocalypse, we didn't build the fire up well enough for it to kind of burn through the night, and we didn't really wake up because we hopped inside of our sleeping bags and fell asleep in the living room. And when we got up the next morning, fire was out, but we were nice and warm inside the sleeping bags. So that's kind of a step above the blankets and the jackets, and you don't have to worry about, the wood or the solar panels or anything. As long as you have something that you can crawl inside of and, keep you comfortable, you're going to be great. And, I talked about it, it's a bonus of having the pets. At the time, we had 7 cats and 2 dogs, and the cats and the dogs had always gotten along, but I'm pretty sure when we sat on the couch and used our battery packs to be able to run the TV so we could watch stuff, every single animal was on top of our blankets and cuddling, and they were keeping each other warm. They were getting warm for being able to get under the blankets and have layers, and it was also helping keep us warm. Like, I know for a fact right now, this cat is warmer than the air temperature because I can feel a heat difference holding onto her belly and rubbing her back. So, make sure you keep your pets in mind as well. Uh, and you do all that, and if, the power goes out or you get stranded somewhere, you can, at the very least, you've got the stuff to keep yourself alive, and you spend a little bit more, you know, time and money, and you can keep yourself comfortable in those situations. But with that being said, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comment section down below, and share the channel with your friends and family. And with that, catch you in the next one.